Hi guys, welcome back to the Drive Life channel, and in today's video I'm going to be telling you about some research that I conducted and how you can get your car to 300,000 miles. Now, it's a bit of a weird story behind this one, and before we get into it I just thought we'd take a minute to appreciate this stunning view over here. I'm so lucky where I live to be able to literally come out the door and come to places like this. We've got the main road there, so hopefully it won't be too loud. But yeah, so let's get into it. I'll give you the backstory first. So the other day I came up with the idea, I've been obsessed with high mileage cars for a long time. The fact that a car can travel around the world 20 times to me is mad. That's 500,000 miles for those of you, or thereabouts, for those of you that don't know. And yeah, it's just something that's always fascinated me. So what I do, I'm really weird. I like to go on Auto Trader, search for the highest mileage cars I can find, and I find that a lot of them are Volvos. So I took this a step further. I started contacting a few sellers about their cars, not inquiring to buy them, although I would like to buy a couple of them because they're 300,000 miles. The biggest one I saw was 450,000 miles on a D5 V70, which I thought was just absolutely fabulous. He had the platinum high mileage club badge on it and everything. It was a really awesome bit of kit. But yeah, so I started contacting these guys and asking them what they've done, or what the hell they do to get to that sort of mileage, both in sort of a maintenance side of things and their jobs. And a lot of them were travelling salesmen. There was a chap who was a chauffeur and used to chauffeur people to Europe, which would be quite a cool job, wouldn't it? But they all sort of said the same thing when it came down to maintenance, and that's what this video is about. So I'm going to break it down in terms of engine, transmission, running gear, etc, fairly simple. So let's get straight into it. So the first thing they said about how they maintain the engine was that they all change the oils smaller intervals than Volvo suggested. So on these cars, Volvo suggest 18,000 miles, which in my head is absolutely crazy. On the sort of previous generation Volvos, it was 10,000 miles. But with the introduction of long life oils, etc., they've bumped it up to make it appealing to lease companies. But yeah, so they I think 9 of them said that they changed it every 4,000 miles. And there was one that said he changed it every 3,000 miles, which at the point he was changing it near weekly, which is absolutely crazy, isn't it? So the biggest thing they said was making sure that these oil changes are done sooner than Volvo suggests. And that's because obviously it keeps the lubrication in the engine. Oil tends to break down over time. The more miles you put on it, the more sort of heat cycles it's put through, the lubricity reduces over time. And they said that was one of the biggest things that they did, was change the oil more often than Volvo says. They also said they use premium filters or standard OEM filters in their cars. There's one chap who used only Bosch filters in the cars, and he said he's never had an issue with the car ever. So that's definitely something to consider when you're scanning through perhaps Euro car parts or GSF or Autodoc, or wherever you get your car parts from. They're obviously listed in terms of the cheapest one first, and then you've got the other options. They said they always went for Bosch, the premium brands, or MAN as well were another one. So that's definitely something you should consider when you're changing parts on your car, because for the sake of an extra few pounds you can really save a lot of headaches in the future. So that was the engine. Obviously they also had cam belts and stuff changed on the nose. There was a chap who had his cam belt changed every 50,000 miles, which he said was about every sort of between 12 and 18 months. So that's another thing to make sure you're doing. Moving on then is the transmission. So transmissions again are the next sort of Achilles heel in any car, especially automatic transmissions. Manuals, obviously you just replace the clutches, change the fluids, etc. You're all good. Now when it came to the automatic transmissions, all of these cars were automatic bar one, which I was quite astounded by, because everyone goes on about how the AW55 transmissions, which are the transmissions in the P2 cars, were awful and made out of chocolate, and that the TF80SC is much better but still not great. So it was interesting to see that the older transmissions were lasting. So I asked them again how they did that, and they said again, changing the fluids. Now this one chap changed it every 30,000 miles, the others changed it around 50,000 miles, but it was a theme that they all said, was that you need to be changing the fluid in it regularly. And this is because, like using premium fuel, etc., when this fluid breaks down, it clogs up things, the solenoids, the valve bodies, everything like that, and that's what causes these transmissions to fail. If you change the fluid regularly, it doesn't give it a chance to break down to the point where it clogs it up, and will prolong the life of the gearbox. The other thing a couple of them mentioned was that they monitored transmission temperatures. One guy said, because he did a lot of towing, he put an extra transmission cooler on the car. I'm not going to go into that because that's all very complicated, but yeah, definitely interesting things to consider when it comes to transmissions. You just need to change the fluid. Volvo say that you don't, but that's just not true. Cars where the fluid doesn't get changed normally last around 150,000 miles maximum, really. You might get a bit longer if you're lucky, but they will fail eventually. So you definitely want to get the fluids changed. I think it's about £170 from my local specialist. I'm going to be doing a video on it shortly of how to do it yourself, but for the sake of that, why would you bother not doing it? It just seems silly to me that people leave this stuff. But yeah, next they said was suspension and everything like that. Now these are heavy cars, they go through suspension components fairly frequently, bushings, etc., wear quite quickly on heavy cars. I had a friend with a Rolls Royce and he was always changing the front ball joints and everything like that because it was just constantly wearing out. However, these cars, they're fairly stout in terms of the components used. Biggest thing was shock absorbers, they said. Now this is something that I've spoken about on the channel before. One chap went through shock absorbers sort of 4 every 5 years or so. So he said he would always have them changed in pairs, otherwise you get sort of an upset in the balance of the car, and he would also make sure that they bought the premium products again. Now obviously this car has the air suspension, or the self-leveling. It's not air suspension, it's like fluid, but they're self-leveling, and they're very expensive, and I've got one due that needs to be changed, but they said you just shouldn't leave them at all, otherwise they will get worse and cause damage. So I'm definitely going to get that done. Wheel bearings as well, they're all changed regularly, and that seems to be the theme about this, guys. If you want your car to last, you just need to stay on top of it, replace bits before they break, essentially. Now they did report a few issues, various things like electrical faults, water leaks, etc., etc., which we all sort of know on these cars anyway. Air conditioning was another one they said they use quite frequently, as they're constantly having to regas it, because these chaps are spending 9 hours a day in their car. It's absolutely crazy. And they were doing, some of them were doing 1,000 miles in one day, in one sitting, and they said the only reason they could do that was because it was a comfortable Volvo, which is interesting, isn't it? So yeah, in terms of interior wear and everything like that, these cars tend to wear pretty well. The buttons on this car, I mean, this is only 98,000 miles, this car, so it's not high mileage by any means yet. But as you can see, all of the buttons on this car have stayed absolutely fine. And the same as along here. We've got a bit of oldness in the seats, and you guys will be glad to hear that I've got some products that I'm going to be using on these seats to sort of rejuvenate them. But that's what they said. It was just a case of constantly giving it TLC. As you can see, these bolsters start to wear, and the leather here, and there was one guy, he just said every 6 months he'd cover it with like a leather food product, which basically nourishes the leather and keeps it soft and supple, and then when things like the bolster here, where it starts to lose its colour, he just re-dyed it using a kit that he got online. So definitely something to consider. Leather on these cars tends to, well, they're quite famous, Volvos, aren't they, for having leather that's quite sort of tired and faded, and they use quite a thick traditional leather. You can really see the grain here, can't you, there. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this video, guys. Just thought I'd talk about this because I think it's something that I want to do with these cars. High mileage cars fascinate me. I saw a Volkswagen Phaeton for sale, £5,000 for a 2014 one. Had 272,000 miles. But it looked immaculate, and I think what they've done is employed a lot of the tricks that these guys had done. So I thought I'd get in contact with these Volvo owners that I'd found, just to ask them really. The thing is with Volvo owners, a lot of them are more than happy to chat about this sort of thing. They enjoy it. So yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know what mileage your Volvo is down in the description, in the comments below. It'd be really good to see whether we've got a collection of high mileage Volvos in the chat. Let me know also if you're part of the high mileage Volvos club. I'm not anywhere near yet. I need to stick probably another 50,000 before they'll consider having me. I think the bronze is 150,000, so that tells you, doesn't it, what sort of mileages these cars are doing and what they're capable of. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.